The day my own daughter stood in the doorway of the house I had paid for, pointed to the street, and said, "Get out of here," something inside me went completely quiet. No warning, no conversation, no place for me to go. I stood there holding my coat, trying to understand if I had done something wrong, or if this was really happening. But it was real, and it didn't stop there. Because what happened after my eldest son found out changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. I'm 73 years old, and I've buried a wife, built 2 businesses, and raised 3 children in a house that used to smell like cinnamon and sawdust on Sunday mornings. That house is gone now, sold 3 years back so Emily, my youngest, could start fresh after her divorce. My money went into that place. My hands did too, and still, there I was on her porch in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with a suitcase and nowhere to go. Emily didn't even look angry. That would have been easier. She looked tired, like I was something she'd been meaning to deal with for a long time. "You can't stay here, Dad," she said, arms folded tight. "This isn't working." "Not working?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I expected. "You make everything tense. The kids feel it. I feel it." I thought about the nights I fixed her sink, watched her boys so she could go out, paid off the credit cards she said were temporary. I thought about how I kept quiet when she snapped at me in front of them. "I sleep in the back room," I said. "I stay out of your way." She shook her head. "That's the problem. You're always here." That sentence, it landed harder than anything else. Behind her, I saw my grandson, Tyler, standing in the hallway, 12 years old. He didn't wave, just watched. "I gave you this house," I said, not loud, just steady. "And I'm grateful," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "But that doesn't mean you get to live here forever." Forever. Like I was some kind of burden that had overstayed its welcome. She stepped aside just enough to point toward the street again. "You need to leave, today." I picked up my coat. My hands were steady. That surprised me. "All right," I said. She didn't stop me, didn't offer a ride, didn't ask where I'd go. The door closed behind me before I reached the gate. I walked 3 blocks before I realized I still had my phone in my pocket. No missed calls, no messages, just silence. So I sat down on a bus bench, right there under a flickering sign, and stared at the one name I hadn't called in over a year. Michael, my eldest son. We hadn't spoken since the argument, the one Emily said I caused, the one that split the family clean in half. My thumb hovered over his number. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "Don't tell Michael, this doesn't concern him." I read it twice. And that's when I understood something wasn't right, because whatever she was so afraid of him finding out had nothing to do with me being in the way. I stared at that message for a long time, longer than I cared to admit. The street was quiet, just the hum of traffic in the distance, and a dog barking somewhere behind a fence. My daughter had just thrown me out of a house I paid for, and her biggest concern was making sure I kept my mouth shut. That didn't sit right. Emily had always been strong-willed, even as a little girl. Stubborn, sure, but not cruel. Not like this. Not the kind of woman who would push her own father out the door and then send a warning like that. "Don't tell Michael." I leaned back against the cold metal bench and closed my eyes for a moment. The last time Michael and I spoke, it wasn't pretty. Raised voices, accusations. He said I was being manipulated. I told him he didn't understand his sister. We both said things that stuck. After that, silence. Birthdays passed. Holidays came and went. No calls. Emily made sure of that. Always a reason, always a story about why Michael was too busy or not interested. And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. My phone buzzed again. Another message. "You promised you wouldn't interfere. Don't start now." Promised. I frowned at the screen. I didn't remember making any promise like that. Not to her, not to anyone. A car passed by, headlights sweeping across me for just a second, and I caught my reflection in the bus stop glass. Old man. Tired eyes. Holding on to something that didn't quite make sense anymore. That's when something shifted. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was doubt. I opened my contacts again and hovered over Michael's name. My finger trembled just a little this time. Not from fear, but from the weight of what that call might stir up. Emily had warned me, which meant she was afraid of it, and I couldn't ignore that. I pressed the call button. It rang longer than I expected. Once, twice, 3 times. I almost hung up. Then, yeah, his voice, same as I remembered. Low, careful. I swallowed. Michael, it's Dad. Silence. Not the kind that comes from confusion, the kind that comes from history. I know who it is, he said. Another pause. You all right? That question caught me off guard. No anger, no sarcasm, just direct. I looked down at my suitcase sitting beside my feet on the sidewalk. No, I said honestly, I'm not. There was a shift on the other end. I could hear him moving, maybe standing up. What happened? I hesitated. Emily's message echoed in my head. Don't tell Michael. I exhaled slowly. Your sister told me to leave. Said I can't stay there anymore. Dead silence. Then, quieter. Sharper. She what? I rubbed my forehead. It's done, son. I'm out. I just didn't know who else to call. Another pause, but this one felt different. Heavy. Controlled. Where are you right now? Bus stop on 5th and... I know where that is, he cut in. His voice had changed. Tight. Focused. I'm coming to get you. Don't move. Michael, you don't have to... I said don't move. The line went dead. I sat there, phone still in my hand, heart beating a little faster now. Not from fear, but from something I hadn't felt in a long time. Someone was coming for me. 15 minutes later, a black pickup pulled up fast to the curb. Driver's door opened before the engine even settled. Michael stepped out. He looked older. Of course he did. 48 now, broader shoulders, grayer at the temples. But his eyes, those hadn't changed. He walked straight toward me, took one look at the suitcase, and his jaw tightened. She really did it, he muttered. I stood slowly. It's not as bad as... Don't, he said sharply. Not at me. At the situation. He grabbed my suitcase without asking and tossed it in the back like it weighed nothing. Get in. I did. We drove in silence for a minute. Then 2. His hands gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. Finally, he spoke. How long has this been going on? What do you mean? He glanced at me just for a second. How long has she been treating you like this? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because the truth, I didn't know where it started. Or maybe I just hadn't wanted to see it. Michael exhaled slowly through his nose. Yeah, he said quietly. That's what I thought. We drove another block before he added, almost under his breath. She told me you cut me off. My head turned. What? He nodded once, eyes back on the road. 3 years ago, she said you didn't want anything to do with me anymore. Something inside my chest dropped, slow and heavy, because I had never said that, not once. And suddenly, sitting there in that truck, I realized this wasn't just about being thrown out of a house. It was about something much bigger, something my daughter had been hiding for years. The truck kept moving, but everything inside me felt like it had stopped. She told me you cut me off. I repeated those words in my head like they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. But they didn't. They just sat there, heavy and wrong. I never said that, I finally told him. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Michael, I never cut you off. He didn't answer right away, just kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight, like he was holding something back. That's not what she told me, he said. What exactly did she say? He let out a slow breath through his nose. She said you were done with me. Said I crossed a line during that argument, that you didn't want me in your life anymore. I felt something twist deep in my chest. That's not true, I said. We argued, yes, but you're my son. I was angry. Not finished. Michael gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, well, I spent a year trying to call you. I turned toward him. What? I called, texted. Left voicemails. Nothing. He shook his head. Then Emily stepped in. Said you didn't want to hear from me. Told me to respect your wishes. My stomach dropped. I never got those calls. He glanced at me again, longer this time, studying my face like he was trying to decide if I was lying. I figured, he said quietly. We drove in silence again, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was full of all the things that didn't add up. After a minute, he spoke again. She also told me you were struggling, that you needed help but didn't want to admit it. I frowned. Struggling how? With money, he said. Bills, medical stuff. She said she was handling it for you. I stared at him. Handling what? Michael's grip tightened on the wheel. I've been sending her money. Every month. That hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. How much? Doesn't matter. It does to me. He hesitated. Then, 5,000, sometimes more. The air in the truck felt thinner. For how long? I asked. Almost 3 years. 3 years. I leaned back slowly, my mind trying to catch up with something it didn't want to believe. That money wasn't for me, I said. I'm starting to figure that out. I rubbed my face with both hands. My thoughts were scattered now. Pieces of conversations, small moments, things I ignored at the time. Emily always paying bills on my behalf. Emily insisting I didn't need to worry about finances anymore. Emily getting irritated whenever I asked questions, and every time I tried to reach Michael, something got in the way. A wrong number, a missed call, a message that must not have gone through. I swallowed hard. She's been controlling everything, I said. My accounts, my mail, even my phone at one point when I got that new plan. Michael nodded slowly. Yeah, that tracks. I turned toward the window, watching the city pass by in a blur. Tulsa looked different now, colder somehow. I thought I was helping her, I admitted. After the divorce, she said she needed stability for the boys. I trusted her. You gave her everything, didn't you? I didn't answer, because he already knew. We pulled up to a red light. The truck idled quietly. Michael finally looked straight at me. She didn't just push you out today, he said. She's been setting this up for a long time. My throat tightened. Why? He held my gaze for a moment, then looked back at the road. I don't think she expected you to call me, he said. The light turned green. He pressed the gas, and I don't think she expected me to start asking questions. Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger yet, not even hurt, just a slow, creeping realization. Michael, I said carefully, where are we going? To my place, he replied. You're staying with me. I nodded faintly. All right. He drove another block, then added, almost under his breath. But first, we're going to stop somewhere. I frowned. Where? He didn't look at me this time. The bank. A pause. Because if what I think is happening is actually happening. His voice hardened in a way I hadn't heard since he was a young man protecting his younger siblings. Then your daughter didn't just lie to us. He glanced at me, eyes sharp now. She stole from both of us. We didn't say much after that. When your own child becomes a question mark, words don't come easy. The bank sat on the corner of 3rd and Main, same place I'd been going to for years. I remember opening my first account there when interest rates actually meant something. Back when my wife, Carol, used to sit beside me and double-check every signature. Now I walked in with my son beside me, and a feeling in my gut that something was about to break open. The air inside was cool, Quiet. A young teller smiled at us like we were just another pair of customers. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "I need to review my accounts," I said. "All of them." She nodded politely, but I could already see the confusion in her eyes as she pulled up my file. "I'm sorry, sir. It looks like your primary accounts are under joint authorization." "I know that," I said. "My daughter helps manage things." Michael shifted beside me but stayed quiet. The teller hesitated. "Yes, Miss Emily Harper is listed as primary operator on several accounts." "Primary?" That word didn't sound right. "I want full access," I said. "Today?" She gave a small, professional smile. "Of course. I'll just need to get my manager." We waited in a small office. Beige walls, 2 bright lights. The kind of room where people either sign something or find out something they wish they hadn't. Michael stood by the window, arms crossed. I sat in the chair, hands resting on my knees, trying to keep them steady. A few minutes later, the manager walked in. Mid-40s, clean suit, calm voice. "Mr. Walker, how can I assist you today?" I looked up at him. "I want to understand where my money's been going." He nodded once and sat down, opening a tablet in front of him. "Let's take a look." At first, it didn't seem like much. Regular withdrawals, transfers, bills being paid. Then he scrolled, and kept scrolling. Michael leaned in closer. "What is that?" he asked. The manager hesitated. "These are recurring transfers." "To who?" Michael pressed. The manager turned the screen slightly toward us. I felt my chest tighten. Every month, large amounts. Not hundreds, not even thousands, tens of thousands. Transferred into an account under Emily's control. My breath slowed. "That's not right," I said quietly. That's too much." The manager nodded carefully. "These transactions have been authorized under your joint agreement." "I never approved that," I said. Michael stepped forward. "Show me the authorization." The manager pulled up another screen. Digital signatures. My name, over and over again. I stared at them, stared. "That's not how I sign," I said. And I knew it the moment I said it. Because I've signed my name the same way for 50 years. These were close, but not mine. Michael's voice dropped. "You're telling me she's been moving this kind of money every month, using forged authorization?" The manager chose his words carefully. "I'm saying the signatures may need to be reviewed." I leaned back in the chair, the room suddenly feeling smaller. "How much?" I asked. He hesitated, then said it. "Over the last 3 years, approximately $480,000. $500,000. Gone. Not invested, not saved. Taken." I closed my eyes for a moment. Not from shock, from something worse. Understanding. All those times she said, "Don't worry about it, Dad." All those times she told me I was taken care of. All those times she made sure I didn't look too closely. Michael let out a low breath. Jesus. I opened my eyes again, slow and steady. "Where is it now?" I asked. The manager tapped the screen again. "Most of it has already been withdrawn or transferred further. There are multiple outgoing transactions tied to personal expenses." Michael shook his head. "She drained him." "No," I said quietly. They both looked at me. I swallowed once. "She didn't just drain me." I turned my head toward my son. "She made sure I wouldn't notice." The manager shifted in his seat. "Mr. Walker, if you believe there's been fraud, we can begin an investigation immediately." I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said. "We're going to do that." Michael stepped closer, his voice tight with something controlled and dangerous. "And we're also going to talk to Emily." I didn't answer right away, because for the first time, I wasn't thinking like a father. I was thinking like a man who had been lied to, used, and quietly pushed aside. And the worst part? This still didn't explain everything. I looked back at the screen one more time, all those transactions, all that money. And then one detail caught my eye. Something small, easy to miss, a separate account. Not Emily's, not mine. A third name. I leaned forward slightly. "Who is that?" I asked. The manager zoomed in. Michael read it first, and I watched his face change. Not anger this time. Something colder, something deeper. He looked at me slowly. "Dad," he said. A pause. "That account, it's not just hers." My stomach dropped. "Then whose is it?" He held my gaze. "It's under a legal firm." Silence filled the room. I felt my hands go cold. Because now this wasn't just about stolen money. It was about something planned, something structured, something that had been building quietly, right under my nose. And suddenly, being thrown out of that house didn't feel like the beginning. It felt like the final step. Michael didn't say another word until we got back in the truck. He just drove, fast, but controlled. The kind of driving where every movement is precise, because if you let yourself feel anything, you might lose it. I sat there beside him, staring at my hands. A legal firm. Not just Emily moving money around. Not just carelessness or desperation. This was organized, planned. "Do you recognize the name?" Michael finally asked. I shook my head. "No." He nodded once, like he expected that. "I do." That made me look up. "What do you mean?" He kept his eyes on the road. "I've seen that firm before. They handle estate transitions, asset transfers, things like that." My stomach tightened. "Estate?" I repeated. He glanced at me briefly. "Yeah." I let that word sit for a second. Estate. That's not the kind of word you use unless someone's dead or about to be. "That doesn't make sense," I said. "I'm still here." Michael didn't respond right away. Instead, he reached into the center console and pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then handed it to me. "Look at this." I took it. An email thread. My name was in it, but I hadn't written a single word. I scrolled slowly, my eyes trying to keep up with what my brain didn't want to accept. Requests for fund reallocations, discussions about long-term care structuring, language about declining capacity, and protective financial oversight. My throat went dry. "That's not me," I said. "I never sent any of this." "I know," Michael said quietly. I kept reading, and then I saw it. A document attached, a draft, power of attorney. My name at the top. Emily listed as sole decision-maker, effective immediately upon medical confirmation of incapacity. My hands started to shake. "I'm not incapacitated," I said. "I've never been diagnosed with anything like that." Michael's voice was steady. She was building a case. For what? So she could take everything legally. The words landed heavy. Too heavy. I stared out the windshield as the truth began to take shape. Slow, ugly, undeniable. "She wanted control," I said. "Not just control," Michael replied. "Ownership." I swallowed hard. "And me?" He didn't answer that right away. Instead, he pulled into a quiet parking lot and turned off the engine. The silence that followed felt louder than anything we'd said. Finally, he looked at me. "You were the last piece," he said. I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means, as long as you were still in that house, still aware, still asking questions." He paused. She couldn't finish it. I felt something cold spread through my chest. "So she needed me out," I said slowly. Michael nodded. "Yeah." I leaned back in the seat, staring up at the roof of the truck. All those little moments. Her frustration when I asked about money. Her insistence on handling paperwork. Her sudden distance, the cold tone. The way she stopped looking at me like I was her father and started treating me like something temporary. "She wasn't just getting rid of me?" I said. Michael's voice dropped. "No." A long pause. "She was preparing for you to disappear." That word. Disappear. It didn't sound like exaggeration. It sounded like intention. I closed my eyes for a moment. And that's when another memory came back. Something small, something I brushed off at the time. A doctor's appointment. Emily insisted on coming with me, answered questions for me before I could speak, told the doctor I'd been forgetful. I remember laughing it off, thought she was just being protective. I opened my eyes slowly. "She's been telling people I'm losing my mind," I said. Michael nodded once. "That's how you start the process." My chest tightened. She was building a paper trail. Exactly. I let out a slow breath, but it didn't ease anything, because now it all made sense. The isolation, the control, the money, the lies between me and my own son. Every step, deliberate, every move, quiet. And then today, the final push. Get out. I sat there for a long time, saying nothing. Because what do you say when your own child has been preparing to erase you while you were still alive? Finally, I spoke. "Why?" It came out softer than I expected. Not angry, just tired. Michael looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen since he was a boy. Not frustration, not distance, protectiveness. "I don't think it started like this," he said. "I think it started with money, then control, then it just grew." I nodded faintly. "That's how these things go," I murmured. A long silence followed. Then Michael reached forward, started the engine again. "We're not letting this go," he said. I looked at him. "No," I agreed quietly. He pulled out of the parking lot. "But there's something you need to understand," he added. "What's that?" He glanced at me, his voice low and serious. "She's already filed something." My stomach dropped. "Filed what?" He exhaled slowly. "I didn't want to say it until I was sure." A pause. "Then, she's already started legal proceedings to declare you mentally unfit." Everything inside me went still, because suddenly, this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about whether I would even be allowed to prove I was still myself. I didn't sleep that night. Michael gave me his bed and took the couch, but I just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of a house that didn't belong to me. Again. Only this time, it wasn't confusion keeping me awake. It was clarity. By morning, everything felt sharper, colder, like the world had stripped itself down to the truth whether I was ready or not. Michael was already in the kitchen when I came out. Coffee on the table, papers spread out. "You should see this," he said. I sat down slowly. He slid a folder toward me. "Legal documents, filed 3 weeks ago. Petition for evaluation." Statements from Emily, describing memory decline, erratic financial behavior, confusion about personal relationships. I read every word. Each sentence, careful, each lie, believable. "She built a story," I said quietly. Michael nodded. "Yeah." I flipped the page, and then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A statement, signed, by a doctor. I stared at it. "That's the same doctor," I said slowly. "The one she took me to." Michael leaned forward. "What does it say?" I read it again, just to be sure. Then I handed it to him. "It says I showed signs of early cognitive impairment." Silence filled the room. Michael read it twice. His jaw tightened. "You answered your own questions that day," he said. "I remember." "You were fine." "I know." He set the paper down harder than necessary. "She coached it," he muttered. "She controlled the narrative." I sat there, hands folded, heart steady in a way that didn't match the situation. Because something inside me had already shifted. Fear had passed. What was left was something else. "We're going to fight this," Michael said. I nodded once. "Yes." He looked at me like he was waiting for more. Anger, rage, something loud. But I didn't have it. Not anymore. Because the truth had settled in too deep for that. "I raised her," I said quietly. Michael didn't respond. I taught her how to sign her name, how to balance a checkbook, how to stand on her own 2 feet. I looked down at the papers, and she used all of it. There was a long silence. Then Michael spoke, softer this time. "You didn't do this, Dad." I shook my head faintly. "No," I said. But I didn't stop it either. That was the part that stayed with me. Not the money, not the lies, but the slow, quiet way I let things slide, because it was easier than facing what they might mean. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. Michael looked at me. "You expecting anyone?" "No." He stood, walked to the door, opened it. 2 people stood outside. A man and a woman, professional, calm, the kind of calm that doesn't ask questions. "Mr. Walker?" the man asked. Michael stepped slightly in front of me. "Yeah, who's asking?" The man held up a folder. "We're here on behalf of the court." My chest tightened, just a little. The woman spoke next. "We need to speak with Mr. Harold Walker regarding a filed petition." Michael's voice hardened. "You can speak right here." They exchanged a glance. Then the man looked past him, directly at me. "Sir," he said, "we've been authorized to conduct a preliminary welfare check." I stood up slowly. "I'm fine," I said. "I'm sure you are," he replied calmly. "This is just procedure." Michael turned toward me. "You don't have to do anything right now." But I was already walking forward, because I understood something in that moment. This wasn't about truth. It was about what could be proven. And right now, she had paperwork. I didn't. I stepped up beside my son. "What exactly are you here to determine?" I asked. The woman answered this time. "Whether you're capable of managing your own affairs." I nodded slowly. "And if I'm not?" She didn't hesitate. "Then temporary control may be assigned." Control. There it was again. Different voice. Same word. I looked at both of them, then at Michael, then back at the folder in the man's hands, and for the first time since all of this started, I felt something close to anger. Not loud, not wild, just settled. "All right," I said. They both straightened slightly. "I'll cooperate." Michael looked at me sharply. "Dad." I raised a hand gently. "It's all right." Because I understood now. Fighting this wouldn't happen by arguing. It would happen by letting them see. Everything. I turned back to them. "But I have one condition." The man nodded. "Go ahead." I held his gaze. "My daughter will be present." A pause, a small one. Just enough. The woman glanced at the man again. "That can be arranged," she said. I nodded once. Good. Because there was one thing I needed before any of this went further. One conversation, face to face, no doors, no lies carried through phones or paperwork, just the truth. Michael stepped closer to me, voice low. "You sure about this?" I looked at him, then toward the door, toward whatever was coming next. "No," I said honestly. A small pause. Then I added, "But she is. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come."